When we take a step back and look at the decade of the 2010s, it's easy to dismiss it as being the worst decade in WWE history, but those first 4 years were okay. For me, the year 2011 was the sweet spot. That year was absolutely packed full of big things happening, and a lot of it was really entertaining. Not all of it, but a lot of it. For the first time in history, WWE presented the biggest ever Royal Rumble, with 40 superstars entering the match rather than the usual 30. Those extra 10 superstars didn't make the match any better than usual. In fact, they ended up making it worse, if anything, and they padded out the rest of the entries with people like Hornswoggle and Santino Marella, and there were a lot of comedy spots during the match. Predictably, for this time period, John Cena went into Superman mode and eliminated 7 other men. The end of the match was a bit of a joke too. Alberto Del Rio thought he'd won after eliminating Randy Orton, but it turned out that Santino was never thrown over the top rope. And so the match continued for a few seconds until Del Rio got the better of him to become the 2011 winner of the Royal Rumble. This was going to be a big year for Del Rio. He debuted back in the summer of 2010, and WWE were determined to make him the company's #1 heel. And this win at the Royal Rumble put him on course to face the World Heavyweight Champion Edge at WrestleMania 27. And for Edge, the year 2010 had been a pretty good one. He returned from injury in January and won that year's Royal Rumble, which led to a great feud with Chris Jericho and another feud against Randy Orton. Then he won the World Championship in December, and here at the 2011 Royal Rumble, he successfully defended it against Dolph Ziggler. But now things were going to take a tragic turn, and it looked like his career was coming to an end. For years, Edge had suffered from a nagging neck injury, and now it was becoming a real problem for him. So bad, in fact, that the doctors told him that he had to retire from wrestling. Considering how hard they were pushing Del Rio at the time, it was a surprise to see Edge retain the world title at WrestleMania, and it came as a bigger shock when he announced his retirement a couple of weeks later. But there was a great bit of booking at Extreme Rules where he helped his best friend Christian in a ladder match to become the new world champion. And it was a great moment to see Christian finally honoured with the world title, but sadly it would be a disappointingly short title reign. Just 5 days later on SmackDown, Christian lost the belt to Randy Orton. This loss left a lot of fans feeling cheated, because we really believed that Christian deserved a proper title reign. After a frustrating couple of months where Christian lost to Orton on pay-per-view, he eventually regained the title at Money in the Bank. But it was clear that WWE didn't have any faith in him, because he didn't even have to pin Randy to win the belt. The stipulation of the match said that the title could change hands on a disqualification, and Orton was DQ'd after a low blow. Christian's second title reign lasted just 28 days, and then he lost it back to Orton in a no-holds-barred match at SummerSlam. And that was the sad end to Christian's World Championship career. John Cena emerged from the Elimination Chamber in February as the winner, which put him on course to face The Miz for the title at WrestleMania. Cena vs The Miz might have sounded like a fairly sad WrestleMania main event if it wasn't for The Rock. The Rock made his first in-person return to WWE in nearly 7 years, and it was so exciting to see him back in the ring. A lot of fans had totally lost faith that The Rock would ever come back, considering he was well on his way to becoming one of the world's biggest movie stars at the time. His return was truly electrifying. The crowd was louder than they'd been in years, and seeing the Brahma Bull back home in WWE was one of the year's best moments. He announced that he would be the guest host at WrestleMania 27. The feud between John Cena and The Miz quickly became overshadowed when The Rock called Cena out. Over the years, Cena had made several disparaging comments about The Rock in interviews, and now it was time for them to finally come face to face. During the WrestleMania match, both men were counted out, but then The Rock came down to the ring and restarted the match, this time with no disqualifications. It wasn't long before The Rock got involved in the match, hitting Cena with a rock bottom and allowing The Miz to retain the title. On Raw, Cena called out The Rock, and in an unprecedented move, the men agreed to wrestle each other in a year's time at WrestleMania 28. WWE booking that main event a year in advance felt really special and exciting at the time, and for John Cena, his redemption was just around the corner. At Extreme Rules, he beat The Miz and John Morrison in a steel cage match to once again become WWE Champion. For now, the experiment of having The Miz as a main event heel was over. And for Randy Orton, his World Championship reign also came to a crashing end after he ran into Mark Henry at Night of Champions. It was quite the turnaround for Henry, because after years of being stuck in the mid-card and playing comedy roles, he finally got a push as a monster heel, and he was damn good at it. Henry turned heel in April after attacking John Cena and Christian. They were the first entrants into his Hall of Pain. He beat The Big Show at Money in the Bank in just 6 minutes before a bunch of jobbers fell victim to the world's strongest slam, and Henry started to get dirty in the ring too, messing up his opponents with weapons at any opportunity. He even crushed The Big Show's leg, putting him out of action for 3 months. Finally, they were booking Mark Henry as the scary, violent motherfucker that we all knew he could be. He won a 20-man battle royal to become the #1 contender to the World Heavyweight Championship, which led to a match between him and Randy Orton at Night of Champions. Orton became the next entry in the Hall of Pain, and Henry walked away as the World Heavyweight Champion. That reign only lasted for 3 months, but he still looked like a great monster champion. In the end, he lost the title to The Big Show, but The Big Show's title reign would only last a few minutes as Bryan cashed in his briefcase to win his first World Championship. At the start of 2011, Bryan was the United States champion, and he won the Money in the Bank briefcase in July after being drafted to SmackDown. It had been a slow build for Bryan, but this year is where he got on the road to becoming WWE's most loved superstar. But before he won the world title, Bryan got into a feud with Sin Cara. Yes, it was in 2011 when WWE tried desperately to create the next Rey Mysterio, and it was a total disaster. Sin Cara was actually a Mexican wrestler known as Mystico. Mystico had gained huge popularity in Mexico, and WWE saw an opportunity to appeal directly to the massive Latin American market. It was all quite exciting to begin with, as they played videos hyping up his arrival, really making a big deal out of his debut. But his matches were full of botches, which made him a laughingstock among the fans. They tried to give him a special aura with a grand entrance, and they turned the arena a different colour while he was wrestling, but that just turned out to be really cheesy and annoying to look at. And then in July, he was suspended for 30 days after violating WWE's wellness policy. During his suspension, they introduced an imposter, Sin Cara, who was portrayed by Hunico. This led to a confusing and convoluted storyline involving the two different versions of the character. When he came back, Mystico's version of Sin Cara confronted the imposter, leading to a feud between the two men. It turned out that one of the Sin Caras was evil and the other one was a good guy. And so, at Hell in a Cell, good guy Sin Cara defeated evil Sin Cara to reclaim his identity. Despite spending all of this time trying to get him over, Sin Cara would never manage to connect with the fans. One man who had no problem connecting with the fans, however, was CM Punk. At the start of the year, Punk was the heel leader of the new Nexus, But after a couple of losses on pay-per-view to Randy Orton, the faction disappeared, and it was time for the summer of Punk to begin. He won a triple threat Falls Count Anywhere match against Alberto Del Rio and Rey Mysterio to become the new #1 contender for the WWE Championship. Punk announced that his contract was about to expire on July the 17th, which just so happened to be the night of the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. He vowed to win the WWE title and leave the company with the belt. Then came the revolutionary pipe bomb promo. As Punk sat on the stage, he cut a promo that broke the fourth wall. He spat venom at WWE management and other superstars too, including John Cena and The Rock, and basically told the fans just how pissed off he was having to work for this bunch of crooks. The promo generated a huge amount of buzz as fans tried to work out whether Punk had gone off script. Of course, we know now that the entire thing was scripted and approved beforehand, but at the time it felt incredible to hear these words coming out of Punk's mouth live on an episode of Raw. At Money in the Bank in his hometown of Chicago, Punk defeated John Cena to win the WWE Championship. It was an incredible title win because most fans just didn't expect it to actually happen. Punk disappeared through the crowd, taking the title with him. But despite the strong start to Punk's first WWE title reign, it all went to hell pretty quickly. He disappeared from the company, and so McMahon set up a tournament to crown a new WWE champion. Cena won that tournament, but then Punk just strolled back in. It was like he'd never left. In the meantime, Punk also started a feud with Triple H, who by this time was the on-screen authority figure. A match between Punk and Cena was booked for SummerSlam to decide who the undisputed champion was, with Triple H as the special guest referee. That was a match that Punk won, but then came the twist. Alberto Del Rio cashed in his Money in the Bank contract to become the new champion. Then Kevin Nash came out and powerbombed Punk to end the show. A lot of fans were left unhappy at the end of SummerSlam. After it looked like Punk had retained the title, he not only lost it to Del Rio, he also seemed to now be in a feud with Kevin Nash of all people, and that sounded like a terrible rivalry that nobody wanted to see. Predictably, Nash got injured, and so we ended up with a match between Punk and Triple H at Night of Champions that Triple H won, of course, and then Punk got pinned by Del Rio the month after. He even ended up taking the pinfall in a tag team match against Awesome Truth at Vengeance. It's crazy how WWE managed to squander CM Punk's popularity during this period. In the end, he did win the title back at the Survivor Series when he dethroned Del Rio. And that was a good thing because Del Rio just wasn't connecting with the fans as the company's top heel. They'd keep on trying to push him in 2012, but in his entire WWE career, he never really managed to get over. The last really notable moment in 2011 was the unlikely pairing of The Rock and John Cena as they joined forces to take on another odd couple in The Miz and R-Truth. At the Survivor Series, The Rock got the win over The Miz, and then he gave Cena a rock bottom to close the show. We were already on the road to WrestleMania 28.